It's the third time I watch your movie, and each time I feel so much different emotions. It's very moving between anger, fear, and sadness. So it's a bit difficult to take the, to speak now. Um, I suggest this discussion to be very open. So please share your comments, your reactions all together. It's a pity we are not in the same room to feel that too. Maybe I would have first a question to open the floor to everyone. And I say it again, you can ask your questions in French. Vous pouvez poser vos questions en français si vous le souhaitez. Je suggère donc que vous ouvriez toutes et tous vos caméras pour que nous partagions ce moment, cette discussion que je souhaite être très ouverte avec Nuno Escudeiro qui nous fait l'honneur d'être présent. Ce que je disais, c'est que ce film est très émouvant. Personnellement, c'est la troisième fois que je le regarde et à chaque fois, il y a beaucoup d'émotions qui surgissent, que ce soit de la colère, de la tristesse. Donc, j'aurais une première question. I have got a first question, which is about the genesis of the documentary. So how come did you decide to take part as a witness of what's happening in the valley, and how did you get in contact with Cédric Héroux and the other associations? And also another question, a bit different, would be, were you useful, I mean, on the field for them too, for the camera, for them to be there as part of the process, to help also, I don't know. That would be my two first questions, please.
In fact, I had been a witness of this way before I did this film. It was my second film on the issue because I'm living in Bolzano, is next to the Brennero Pass. That is the place where refugees were going through Germany, to going from Italy to Germany, crossing there. And what happened in Bolzano is that it's the last city before the border with Austria and then to Germany, that there were a lot of people being thrown out of trains that were trying to cross the border. And so that was the first moment I contacted it. And I was back then, 2014, studying in the film school here there in Bolzano. And I did a film about the people who were on the trains and how they were, a lot about how invisible this process of blocking borders were, and just meeting people in the train station at night. And suddenly these train stations of both Brenner and Bolzano were filled with people. And then I used to live also in northern Finland, not too far from the border with Sweden. And there was another movement quite interesting in a small city called Pajala. So the father of a friend of mine, they were organizing something really beautiful, that they were hiding refugees not to be sent back to Italy. And so that if they would stay 1 year, then they could ask for asylum. And so I met these two dimensions of like people moving and doing things for refugees and being involved, but they were doing it in a very hidden manner because they were really afraid of consequences and really being illegally doing things and disobeying. And then what happened is when I heard first about Cédric and about Ray Citoyen, is that something quite different, that they were getting into these non-violent methods. And so they were doing actions and communicating, doing actions and communicating. And they were really trying to create discussions. It's like, this is happening. We are showing you that this is happening. I'm calling journalists, I'm putting people in my car and I'm crossing a border. I know that this is illegal, but this is what we are left with. And that was really powerful because there was a completely new approach to how we do things, how we act. And this is when I first got there to see like, okay, so show me this that you're trying to say. And then, so it's connected to the second question a bit, because not all of them, as you can tell now, there is a lot of fear also in this meeting. There is a lot of people on the left side that don't want to be filmed. There are people on the right side that are comfortable. What you can say, what you cannot say, what constitutes proof and not, the different methodologies. But for once, the first thing that helped is like that I got into their method, no? A bit. Of course, we tried to work a bit differently because they were surrounded by journalists and a lot of people from all over the world were going there in the beginning when we arrived, mostly in November 2016. And there was really like coming and going journalists to report the situation. And then as we moved forward, then the situation in the valley got much more interesting because they turned around the situation. They started attacking the state. And suddenly there were no journalists, there were no people covering, and we were there and we moved on. And what we, of course, when we were present, we would help because we would prevent certain things from happening because we had some legitimacy and we had also a clear position how we talk with the police and to explain who we are, which are our rights to film and so on. But mostly I think we helped a bit to change or to complexify a bit the narrative of the border crossing, because the first point how it was going on was really that okay, so these people are getting outside the law because they have to do it to overcome this problem, because they need to break the law to help people. And this was the narrative, and because this narrative is not very interesting because it ends with does one have the right to help somebody, to break the law if it is in order to help somebody? But actually what they were trying to say from the beginning, and it took me a long time to really get back to the narrative that felt right to me, is like, no, the state is putting us into a situation that is inadmissible, and it's actually the state that is breaking the law. And so we, with the film, try to turn things around. Okay, let's start from the beginning. What's going on? Why are these people being stopped? What is going on? In which situation are the helpers? And do they have the tools? What are they doing in order to move it forward? And I think it was really beautiful because we launched the film, and there is this festival that is also happening this year in the Raya Valley that it's called Passeur d'Humanité. And we were the first festival that we were filming. It's also when there is this scene with Cedric and Zia speeches in this camp. And they were a lot talking about, and on the festival, it was mostly about civil disobedience and so on. And then we went to Cedric's house and they had a completely different speech. They were talking about fighting the state. When the state enters into the illegality, we have a duty, and we put the state, we explain to the state that actually we are right and they are wrong. And then the next year after the film was launched, then the speech was all about the state is in illegality. We as citizens have to do something when in our backyard something like this happens. And it was quite beautiful because, of course, it was not only us, but we helped to shift the narrative, to create a different narrative, and not put people in a position of defense, because the previous narrative was very, they had to defend themselves. No, that was always about, do I have the right or not? No, you have the duty. It's trying to shift this. No?
Mhm. And what was the reaction of Cédric Héroux and the other members of those associations after watching your movie?
It's always it's a bit mixed, but in general, a lot of people that I care for and that were there really loved the film, and they really felt that it spoke of them. I was like, there is my favorite reaction of all was Alain. Alain is this man who's saying, I don't want my house to turn like Cédric Héroux. And I have to understand that they started as a movement, very big, almost the whole valley was helping. And then with the police repression, it started breaking. Because it's really a method from quite a smart method. You arrest somebody, you create fear, and then the group starts breaking. And I've seen this happening also in Briançon and Sousa Valley, the other place where we filmed a bit. It's the same. It's quite smart. You attack somebody, then people with fear start breaking, and then at some point they actually turn against each other. Some people because of fear, because okay, maybe we shouldn't have made it public. And Alain was a bit like that. And when I was filming and meeting people, there was this thought in the back of my head that I want to do a film that if I show it to them, it puts them together because they understand what's going on. And a lot of time they were such in the middle of such complex actions, and they were moving and doing things that they didn't really have the time to just communicate what's going on. And when I showed it to Alain, it was very beautiful because Alain called Cedric and told him, that what you were doing was really, really good. I really agree with what you're doing. That's what this is for me. Okay, this is a great reaction. And Cedric was very happy as well. Like we liked the film. It's also a very clear film, and we try to break with migrant issues are not rhetoric. They are very concrete. They are very about rights, and they're about violation of human rights, and it's not just this stupid sentence that we hear, we cannot welcome all the misery of the world and making big rhetoric statements, but it's really a concrete issue of law, legality, and practice. And and the pressure that is put on border population is the pressure that is put on city populations as well, for not having like a clear solution and not acting on it, but rather that just letting things go out of fear of what population might say, of all this extreme right propaganda that infiltrates also the central politics discourses. And it's
yeah, it's very interesting to see that even on the field they use the cameras, their own phones to record everything, to have proof of everything, and it becomes a method which is quite the opposite of what's happening in the camps, where you don't know what's happening actually because there is no proof, so no eyes on it. So it's quite the opposite. I would like to open the floor to question, please. Please enter the discussion. Come, don't stay behind your screens. Come with us.
Okay, I can enter into the discussion. Can you listen to me?
Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate Nuno for his film. It's really a beautiful and important piece of work that you have shown us. And I must say it's the second film, it's only the second film that I have seen about this particular situation, and very important to show to the wider public, of irregularities by the state, because it's not very common to find films like yours pointing the finger to these official irregularities. So I guess the filmmaker becomes, in this case, a legal witness to court and justice. And I wonder if you were asked already to do this kind of intervention in courts. The only movie or documentary film that I have seen in the same terms is Mare Chiuso by Stefano Liberti. I don't know if you know it. Also with the Mare Chiuso. And it's very powerful to see how a film can testify against the state and the border policies, etc., etc. So first of all, I would like to ask you if you have more references about this kind of work, and how do you reflect about your own work as a filmmaker in this more general question of citizenship and participation as a movie maker. Parabéns, Nuno, muitos parabéns.
Obrigado. The first question was, sorry, other references. It's actually quite funny because I'm really bad with research. I need to improve this, like research in the sense of outside the situation. So I immerse myself into there, and then all these legal matters, I was really following them with Zia and with Mireille. I was really getting from them like the information and really asking what's going on, and not really, because it's unbelievable, but it's really the matter that nobody knows anything. I know it really feels like this, and you feel like the people of Raya were in the middle of all these things, and they were learning as they were going.
Yeah.
Because these laws, these regulations, etc., they are so complicated. And then it's not only Dublin regulation, but it's also the national law that changes from country to country, and there is not really this broad response that every little place has its own particularities. And it's quite complex, and I think that it makes it really difficult to learn about the broader spectrum. So like the situation there changed because somebody told them at some point that actually in the French law, and in that is based right to ask for asylum and cannot be sent back. And so this information arrived to them. Also, this nice association called ANAFE, that is a really interesting association in France that works with migrant rights. They started working on airports, on people arriving, being sent back and being arrested on airports.
Okay, what have I done? Pardon,
If the law says this, to apply it. And this was the situation when the family was sent back. And it seems that they were evolving and going on, and they were kind of inventing something by discovering actually what are the rules. No, it's quite
and the irregularities.
And the irregularities. No? And they were working very closely with the les ordres des avocats. So there were like people, lawyers on it, and people really trying to understand and trying to make sense of it. And it was quite, and the whole process of bringing a process to the administrative court was something that they tried, and it worked. So it's really trial and error and moving on and going on and trying more and harder and different methods. And it was really beautiful to see them learning and going through. But the second question, it's quite complicated. No, we have all these problems a lot with filmmakers and militant filmmaking, they call it. No? So it's a very bad word, it's militant. But I like it, that's when Cedric says it, what is a militant? A militant is somebody who's politically involved, you know, and it became such a dirty word. For me, it's also a bit for me. What is militant? Why do we need to coin everything with this if we're just trying to participate and just trying to make better the world in a bit? But at the same time, there is some reasoning there that is about us as filmmakers. We try to create pieces that are meaningful, that are emotional, and that enter into a universe. So even though, of course, we have our own positions, of course, we have our own beliefs, but it's what my point was all along and why I do films like this. It has to do with my own personal narrative. And I'm son of one of 74 revolutionaries. This kind of was a workers' union in a factory in the small town where I'm from. And at some point, he got very disappointed with how things were going. He was betrayed by some friends, something like very serious. And then I have this father who doesn't believe anymore. And so I have it in me also, this like, and I need to believe, I need to see people who believe in things, and I need them to show me things, and it's important to believe that we can change things and that we can fight and that we can work for things. And so my research is not, it's really about, I need to believe, and I need to meet people who believe in things, and I need them to not let me get into my cynical side, but actually to believe with them. And so this is my drive.
Benjamin Boudou, vous avez une question?
Obrigada.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's the first time I'm watching this documentary, and yeah, I want to congratulate you as well. It's beautiful, first of all, and it's of course extremely interesting and moving, and so yeah, congrats. I really enjoyed it. I had a couple of questions, but just one or two. so the other documentary I watched was Michel Trosca, Libre, and I wanted to know, what do you think of your colleagues' work? Because I feel they're a bit different, but somehow focusing on the same moment in Cédric Héroul's work there. Second point is, I wanted to know if you had some problem with the police as you were filming them. Did you get involved in those problems, or were you asked to not film, etc., etc.? And finally, I wanted to know if you're still in touch with Cédric Héroul about what he does now, which is the Emmaüs Roya, and how he turned this moment of humanitarian emergency into a strong integration moment of people can work in this little farm there. And so I've just been reading his book and been really interested in how he turned this emergency situation into something that is much more perenne, much more durable in time through working in the farm and so on. So again, thank you very much for this beautiful work.
Thank you. Oh, it's quite nice. I mean, Michel is a friend. We met him from the beginning. He was living there, and it was very funny because we were filming, and it's, if you see our film and his, we are always like, he filmed something that we didn't, we filmed something that he didn't. So we are like, if you want to see the whole story, watch the two films, and then you are basically, not all the moments, but you have a lot of moments between us two. Also, like the first expulsion of the Eritrean family, we got it. Then he got the second part when they started, when they were moving across. And we're friends, and I watched this film for the first time in his basement, like in Roya, in Saoge. From more critical for me, what I watched the film at Michel's, and I was really like, the film finished, and it was before we had ours ready. It came out quite a few months earlier, and almost 1 year earlier. And there was something that was like, that you finish the film and you really feel great. It's like, wow, this is amazing. And for me, I was like, it's like, this is amazing. This really gives me a lot of energy. Like, it's really powerful and people are really changing the world. And I'm like, no, wait. But while I was filming, I never felt like this. You know, I never felt that it was great. I always felt that it was a horrible situation, and I always felt disappointed and frustrated, and you know, and that helped me a lot, because it told me I want a film that makes people feel what I felt and what these people feel. And of course, there's a lot of power and it's quite positive, but I don't want it to leave a positive sign, like, because it is not what's going on. It's really a harsh situation, and we need to be committed to how harsh it is, because we can get around and watch a film that is very positive and celebrate it and feel that our work ends there towards this situation. But not my film. And so I was like really then very careful with this, that the tone of the film stays true to my experience. And then we did the first screen. It was very funny. We did the first test screening, and there was a friend of mine watched the film that was quite a bit different from this, and he just stops and says, "It's horrible. It feels like you can't do anything. Everything fails." And I was like, okay, now we got to the right point. Now maybe we'll make it a little bit lighter because a lot has changed. But okay, the feeling is right. Is this that you need to feel like, in a way, that if you don't do your part, it goes nowhere, because it needs people and it needs input. And it's always what I say when we have screenings, because what comes out is like, what can we do? And it's really get in touch with the reality of your own place, understand what's going on, talk to the associations, talk to like squads who are full of refugees not knowing what to do. So really go into your situation, and that's really beautiful. And it's also heartbreaking. Some people telling me we didn't do enough, I didn't do enough, but there's still time, it's still going on, it's not changing. And then so that felt really right for me. Of course, he had more success with this film than me, because it's people like happy stories. Mine is not so happy. On the second side, yes, I've been to Cédric's last summer, we did a trip, and I seen his project. We talked a bit. It was quite fast. We didn't have so much time, but we stopped by, and it was yeah. It's really this, no? That people like Cedric, they're always onto something, right? And of course, they had this experience that you see in the film. Was INCAL really always, all the time, doing planning, organizing, was really, really, really heavy. And yeah, it's not something that you can take on forever. And then at some point, they just had this idea of turning the farm into a welcoming place. And you have to understand that the border crossing is not continuous. It's like it stops, then nothing happens, and sometimes one person appears. Then and then now people are not going through Royal Valley anymore for some reason. You don't understand why it is. It's sometimes people tell somebody how to do it or to cross, and he thought, okay, but I want to continue to do something. No? I want my world. I want to. He has this beautiful title to the name to his book, "No Change Your World," and it's really like this. And it's like, okay, I have all this traction. I can call them Aus, and I explain them what I want to do, and they just said, okay, that sounds good. We'll do that. And then they started with this project, and hey, I think it's going great. It's still, I think they're still figuring it out as well, trying a lot. I mean, now they had the hurricane there. It's quite horrible. So now they are focused still on reconstructing Troya. It's quite harsh. Yeah, I hope this answered.
Thank you both for the question and the answer. We've got a question from Jordan Elundu.
Yes. Yes, I have a question.
Please.
But good afternoon, everyone. It's more of, I don't know if you are getting me.
Yes, we do.
Okay. I'll start with a comment, because in a world which tends more to be, which envisions to be a planetary village, and where people now, where we witness the rebirth of far right and exclusion movements, it's somehow good to see this piece of humanities. So my question will be on the measures Nuno thinks can be taken place to clear these official irregularities. What are the measures, according to him, that can be put in place to clear these official irregularities?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a hard question, because as I was saying before, there is not one reality. There is not one irregularity. There are 30 irregularities in each border, in each internal border that is being policed and controlled. There is one level of irregularity. And what happened in this place, that there were people with the courage, the political courage, to really challenge it and fight it in this way. And they discovered methods. But for example, when I talk, for example, if I went to Briançon, that is this place that goes in the end of the film, and we say, but maybe you could try to implement the same methods, it already doesn't work, because the way that it's structured is quite different. The people have different relationship with the territory, and it's really complex and complicated. And what we can do, and it's really like this planetary village, that we have really accepted this this sense of globalization. We are all thinking on very large terms, but really what we can do, and what we really can do, is to look at our backyard. Is really local action. Local action is really the thing that we can do. We can really reflect the world. We can read the news about the whole world, and we can really be completely unaware for human rights violation happening right next to us, and that they are happening right next to us. And there are a lot of things going on, especially on migrant issues, right next to us. And it's returned to the 60s and the 70s, organized locally, political parties, political movements, and really analyze what's going on. talk with lawyers on your local situation, understand what is going on and how, communicate it, talk with the local news, and really do a work that stimulates your base. Because by doing that, you create also political communication that goes against what is these generalizations of the extreme right, these very banalizations of things that are not really existing, but they are just getting traction with the fear that a lot of people are feeling of we're losing life quality, of salaries getting lower, on life getting harder, and creating all these monsters. And we really, it's about, okay, let's create a different narrative, especially on our local surroundings. This is what I believe in, and I am absolutely not sure that it works because every reality is going to be different and is going to react differently, and the people are going to be involved are going to be completely different. But that's one solution that I'm reflecting on and that I'm exploring also with another film project that I'm starting to do about commons, and trying to really rethink the big issues of the world in your local context. How do you create commons to really change problems that are being generalized through global warming? How can you change something in your local place just to make sure that you get it right, organizing with other people around you? So I'm reflecting also a bit on this, but my answer that I find is really local action is the key.
Mhm. Thank you for emphasizing that we all have a role to play, and it's not necessary to go far away for that. Actions can be done at our own scale and locally. I think it's very important, and we have we have reflected this week about Utopia, and I think that your documentary um, um, shows us the tension between hope and despair, and how hope is also generated by the civil society on the field directly, but also from you, from the witness, from the writers we have interviews. Also, we have thought of that. So there is a movement, a utopian movement, maybe coming from everyone possible, thanks to everyone, but also together, and not individually, but collectively. If we talk about that, if we comment that, and share it. And I think also that even though with the confinement, with the lockdown, we are all behind our screens, but we have learned also that we have the possibility to share and to show what has been doing. So thank you for that. I don't know if there is another question. Otherwise, I've got one, maybe a last one. So I was thinking, after that documentary, I guess, as you said, it was something for you to experience. Did you change anything in the way you film, and also did you thought of other projects? Maybe not directly on La Jolla, on migration, but to go on with that movement of being a witness, and yes, and a militant.
I forgot to answer one question from Benjamin. That was about the police. I just came back to me. The police is a very interesting issue because we have the right to film the police, and they try to tell you you don't. But if you are very clear, and that's what we were doing. Of course, there they knew that after a while, they knew that in this situation, a lot of journalists that cleared a bit the path for us. But in France, with French law, you have the right to simply come to a police and explain him, I have the right to film you and I have the right to spread it, and I don't need to erase faces. I don't need to do anything, treat it. It's completely right. I have a complete right of it. Of course, there was this law in the parliament that they tried to pass to take away this right from you, and they've been really bad. Like on the Italian side is a bit different because you can film up to the point that they tell you that you have to stop filming. It's a different, it's quite interesting, because then you need to play around with this. Also, we are filming in this Italian police station, and he comes and says, "Can you please stop filming?" And that's when we stop. It's also in the film. And yes, so this film actually changed me a lot, because there is one story that I would like to tell. When I was filming in the train station in Bolzano, that was back 2014, and there was this, we were really waiting in the train station. People were expelled from the trains and trying to talk with them, and we were also telling them how to get into a train and to proceed. And there was this moment that we met these two kids, like, that were thrown away, and should be 15, 16. They were thrown away from the train, and we came to them, "Are you okay?" So like, they threw you out of the train, and there is a way to cross, no problem, don't worry about it. And this kid, he just pointed to my jacket, and he told me, like, I also had a jacket. It was cold, it was winter, like December in the mountains. I also had a jacket like this. I tried to tell it to the policeman, but he didn't let me take it with me. So they were thrown out of the train. He didn't even take his things because they were just expelled. And I was with Nicolas, my director of photography. And that was really the moment where I became a witness of violence, because that was really stupid, unnecessary violence. It's not a big action. It's really something small that has absolutely no need to be. And that was the moment that you're like, okay, that it changed everything. And that's probably why I'm still working in this matter. And because it really clicked, it did something in my body, like, okay, and I'm not anymore a filmmaker trying to understand what it is. Now I'm a witness of violence. And there is this beautiful moment in the valley. I don't know if you've seen it, that when Moussa stops with the car and the police surround him, and Moussa gets out of the car, gets his bag, and Cedric tells him, no, wait a second. And he opens the door and he gets his jacket. And for me, that was like, okay, so it's really a symbol of like unnecessary, stupid violence and small gestures that make all the difference. Yeah. And that was really like a closing of like really understanding what it's all about, who we are as humans, and how we should behave. I really like, yeah, so I'd like to tell you, yeah, it changed me a lot. Also politically, I got much more radical. As Portuguese, I was very like, and also them in the Royal Valley, they were a bit like this, like, we can change the state, we are the citizens. And then I realized that I'm more like, no, sometimes you just need to be against the state. Sometimes the state is really not a good construction, and there is no changing. It's really entering confrontation. And it was, when I heard myself think like this, I was like, okay. You would think that you arrived to your 30s and your politics are very well defined. They're not. They can change a lot. Yeah, and of course, no, I bring also on method and technique of filming. Was also I experimented with things of really listening to the emotions that people are bringing out and accommodating it. So it was really a huge process of growth, and I will take it all with me. And I will continue to do things this way. And I see it changed me on my everyday things, on my everyday behavior, and also to be with Cedric in a certain situation like of stress. I also learned to manage fear much easier. Things like this that, yeah, that's why it's important that we get involved in big things, because we really transformed. I hope this answers.
It's so moving what you said. We've got a question here, if you don't mind. Again, one
I
more.
can stay as long as you want.
Yes, thank you so much for this beautiful film. Again, it's about the police. I wasn't sure whether. Okay.
I wasn't sure. Do you think the police restrained themselves when you filmed them or not, and that they contained their violent behavior as you know, as you were filming them?
Mm. It's a good question. For sure, they go more by the book, so they don't do anything too crazy.
The fact that they're observed.
Like, I mean, this on the juridical level, no? They wouldn't just get somebody and just drive them somewhere else and just drop them. They would at least bring them to the train station, pretend that they're being processed, that there is a procedure, even if there is no procedure. They were pretending. That for sure. And then it's very broad, like because there is this path, the border police station that we see. There, it happens everything. Like inside there, it's really crazy. And at some point, they sent somebody to write a report on human rights violations there, and they were inside. And the policeman slapped the minor in front of her. So it's like things that I didn't see, but like things that you're like completely insane. Especially these border police, they're quite complicated. On the other hand, they are not all like this. There's like there's a lot of correct people in the middle of it, and
Sure.
and there is especially like the local police of Briançon, of Sauvage, that is Sauvage of Braille. That is the policeman who received the family, and they're saying, "Don't worry, everything is going to be taken care of." They they really believe in it. That's funny, and they were really thinking, "Don't worry, we'll get a translator. Everything is going to be all right." It's not that they were lying; they just also didn't know. And at some point, they really got in conflict because they organized this. What happened was that they got this declaration from the police, the declaration from the court, and they brought it to the local police, and they just said, "Look, we're not trying to say that what you're doing is illegal, but you are really collaborating with this system. And like it's clearly said from here, that is the court, that's what's happening is illegal." And so they arranged with them, with the local police of Saint-Georges-en-Bréil, a way that they could get on the train and pass completely independent from the border police decisions. It's also, it's quite, it's quite incredible. Of course, in the beginning, what was happening is that they would arrive to Nice, and then there the gendarmerie and the PAF would just gather them and bring them back, or at least half of them. But they were really pushing it, and okay, first they start like this, it's still happening, okay, another process in the court, we push a bit further, we push a bit further, we push a bit further. And with this, they actually created a movement of passage that lasted not too long, but a few months. It was quite good. But it's quite complicated. Also, the police situation, violence, helping, not linear at all. Especially because it's this. Also, one thing that I learned, that we think that this myth of bureaucracy, that the whole society is very organized and very structured. There's an order on the top that comes down and is perfectly executed and communicated. And I realize it's really not like that. There is this Ministry of the Interior that says the border needs to be closed and patrolled, but without specificity. And then it goes a layer down, and these people need to create a method, and they invent something, and then the people on the ground need to respond to a law that makes no sense, or to a regulation that really doesn't apply to the terrain, and they do something else, and it's really a mess. It's really chaotic.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for the generosity you had to talk so frankly about this experience and the filmmaking and the way you felt and still feels about that and your actions. I'm very grateful to you for that. I would like to say thank you also all of you for being here. Also to thanks Point du Jour production with which I have been in contact for 2 years now, and they have been very kind with us too. So thank you. So I think we are gonna end here. Tomorrow we have a big day too. I don't know. I hope you guys will be able to make it. So we will have 2 panels followed by a conference by Achille Membe to conclude this week, incredibly long week of conference online. So thank you again, Nuno. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was quite a beautiful experience. Thank you for your reactions. It's really nice to be here.
So take care, everyone.
Clap à ma place.